Hey everybody, Dr. Quinn here, and I'm taking a look at week 6 content. Okay, so you will notice that in week 6, we actually have writing assignment 4 due this week. Normally it's due at the end of week 5, but at the end of week 5 was the draft. I went ahead and gave you a couple of extra days. Usually the assignments are due on Tuesday, but I'm pushing this assignment to Friday, so you have extra time to work within the feedback. So if you're watching this video ahead of time, that's great. Just remember your draft will be due at the end of week 4, which is Tuesday night, right? But this is an orientation video to week 6. Okay, so let's start with, you've got the little overview blurb here, and then we're going to move into the learning resources for the week, and you will see figures and tables, adding visual elements to your document. And by the way, in all of the feedback that I'm giving students, I cannot stress enough that you shouldn't be using any clip art or generic images that are not specific to data delivery. You want to be data driven with your information and not just like a picture of two people looking frustrated sitting across the table from each other. That's not effective use of imagery in a professional report like this. Tables, a flow chart, something specific to the data that you've gathered from the overview or from the research. That's what I'll be looking for. Okay, so we've got sample APA 7th edition citations of content in here, and then we've got APA help from the library and the quick reference guide. Please note that by the end of this submission, writing assignment 4 that's due on Friday, you are going to need to be using the UMGC library databases, not Google, to find your academic research, and you wanted to keep it within, especially if you're talking about tech content, you want to keep it within the last 3 or 4 years. You really want very recent content because information from 20 years ago is just not going to be applicable with point of sale. The technology has changed. With cybersecurity, the technology has changed. Even HR practices have probably changed significantly in relation to technology in the last 20 years. Your week 6 discussions have to do with examining PARC for resumes, and we've got a couple of different examples here. So this is all related to writing assignment 5 that's coming up in week 7. And you've got a little bit of a review of what's called the Gunning Fog Index. The Gunning Fog Index is a lexical tool that just talks about how complex is the phrasing of a document. And of course, when you've got multiple audiences like Maria Carmen and staff, you want to make sure the document's accessible to everybody, primary and secondary audiences. So you're just going to test out this tool. All right, now I want to show you that I updated the dates to the writing assignment report to the supervisor. So let's go ahead and click in there, and you'll see the due dates embedded. The draft is due Tuesday, February 13th. The final is due February 16th. And I am giving feedback as they come in, just so the people who post early are going to get a little bit earlier feedback, and I just go in order. If you miss that February 13th due date, I cannot guarantee that I'm going to give you feedback in any depth. I can take maybe a 30-second look at it, but if you submit it like Friday, the day it's due, you're going to get absolutely no feedback, and probably not on Thursday either, just because of my work schedule. And we all understand that everybody is booked to the gills. So make sure you make that February 13 due date, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Note as well that in the assignment, in this assignment overview, it talks about having an executive summary. In this video, I'm going to actually include a link. This is UMGC's writing the executive summary from the Effective Writing Center, and I really like how this is done. The executive summary is over here on the left, and just some additional notes are on the right. You'll see the executive summary should be on its own page. It should be nicely chunked and organized. You'll notice paragraphs aren't particularly long, but there is directed data included that will be mentioned later in the report. And the purpose of this is that not all not all readers of the report are going to read the entirety of it. An executive may have multiple reports on their desk. They may only look at this, and this may or may not be a deciding factor in them agreeing with your recommendations or not. So folding in specific data is really necessary in here. So you want to go from general to specific. Some of your general data points are probably going to come from the assignment overview, but some could come from research. If they do, you do not have to cite the data in the executive summary as long as the exact same data is mentioned in the report. Okay? And as you're putting your reports together, I've got a couple of best practices that I want to share with you. All right, so I've put together this quick little report to supervisor best practices. The memo and the executive summary belong on their own pages. Imagine that the memo is not particularly long. Don't repeat everything in the executive summary. The memo should be a sentence or two. It should be, see the attached report to find blah, 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 blah. Sincerely, there we go. Let's see. The executive summary is thoughtfully formatted. And just some of this is what I mentioned earlier in this video, but I thought I'd make a quick list of it. No clip art or generic images of workers. Your images must be data driven. And you need to label your images, but in addition to saying figure 1, figure 2, you want to have call outs and APA and text citations if it's an image you do not create. So a call out would be somewhere right before the image where you say see figure 1.4. So if you've got data in an image, you have to explain that image to your audience. That's sort of that audience awareness. And, you know, the data may be clear to Maria, but your compatriots at All Washed Up may not be familiar with a particular piece of data. APA and text citations. You've got that in the learning resources. You've got links for how do we document these sources. And as you submit drafts, I'll give you very specific feedback on that. Citing all your borrowed images, making sure you're using the UMGC databases for finding recent peer-reviewed data. And I'm going to show you how to do that now. Citing sources in both the problem and the solution section, and APA format is required only for in-text citations and references, meaning you don't need a cover page that looks like APA. You don't need to double space it. As a matter of fact, single spacing your document with an extra space between paragraphs is nice and pleasing to read. So let me go into the library databases and let me show you to do a quick search. So obviously, when you're in the library databases, you choose full text and scholarly journals only. Let's just search this just for the hell of it, and let's see what kind of sources we come up with. Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to find one. Okay. Social media use, stakeholder engagement, small businesses. Let's collect this. Let's take a look at its publication date. First of all, this came out in 2021. That's within the last 2 years. That's fantastic. You could go back and you could search, and you could limit your search with dates. Do you see from 1945? Obviously, social media wasn't a thing back then, but I would do maybe 2020 to 2024. We're going to go down from as many hits as we have. We still have 2,000 results. So there's plenty of content to choose from. Here's our article. And I think this one's pretty good. So you've got the PDF, so you get to read the full text of it. But over here on the right-hand side is a citation generator. It's going to generate APA for you. You want to make sure that you follow the style, last names, first initials, and then copyright year in parentheses, the title and sentence casing, the title of the journal italic and title casing, volume, issue, pages, and then this document indicator number. That's going to tell me right away that it came from the UMGC databases. Because I want to see you stretching your research beyond Google or beyond Bing. That's part of how I'm going to assess this assignment. And I want to go into the assignment and I want to look at the elements that I've been pointing out in this video that I think are related to how you're going to be graded. The fact that you have a scholarly or trade journal is important. So just choosing like Business Insider, that's like a newspaper, that would not count. That you have sources cited in a problem and solution section would be that you've got like the highest number of sources. You'll notice that it says you need to include 4 sources. The memos to Maria Carmen. Please make sure that you double check the spelling of her name. One of the worst things you can do is misspell her name, C-A-R-M-E-N. I'm seeing a lot of Carmen like that, but you want to double check it. Okay. The relevance of the sources used, and that the sources actually support the argument, accommodating the secondary audience. I've mentioned a little bit of that in this video. The quality and the message of the graphic. There are 2 graphics and they help illustrate problem or solution. That has to do with you not using clip art and you using direct data, and that you explain in the text what that image is saying and doing and how it's going to help make up somebody's mind. Again, an image of 2 people shaking hands is just not what we're looking for. An image of somebody staring intently at a computer is not a data-driven image. Okay, APA format is 20 points. References are cited in the paper. Your citation of sources would be something like this. Say I got this piece of data from Smith. Smith, comma, 2019, you always do last name and copyright year. And if it's at the end of the sentence, a period would go right at the end of that. Okay. Language choices. This is the grammar and the mechanics. And I know when you're working on drafts that you're going to have grammar issues that have not been ironed out yet. I'll just point out a couple from seeing them, but I am operating under the assumption that you're going to smooth most of that out. And revision, there's a significant element of revision. So for the students that are watching this video, remember, post a draft by Tuesday night to get feedback. I'm working all week, so it's going to take me, I'm going to try to do as many as I can on Tuesday and Wednesday. But the last ones, the people who post the latest, will perhaps only get feedback on Thursday, and then the assignment is due Friday. So keep in mind that you can use this assignment rubric as a checklist. You've got the report to supervisor overview, and you want to make sure, one other very important note that I want to put on best practices. Do not cut and paste from the overview. You've got to paraphrase it. You've got to write it entirely in your own words. You can borrow the data point. And the way that you can signal that in your report is you could say something like, from my review of company content or something like that, right? Which to me signals, okay, they're borrowing from the problem set up in the review. That's fine. We want to distinguish that very clearly from data that comes from outside sources. So that's my feedback for you in the overview of the week. I'm excited to see what you could do with this. And of course, if you have questions, just let me know.